How's this for a Christmas gift? Kinda took a while, but hey, at least it's out, am I right? Left-Wing Communism, an Infantile Disorder by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Oh boy, the book that shits on what we know today as left comms. Hello everybody, Record98 here. And again, I'm sorry for the long delay for the book review. Originally I wanted to post this video on the anniversary of the October Revolution, but school got in the way, and then later my computer's keyboard's broke and I couldn't do shit, so I had to borrow my dad's laptop, so yeah, that's why it took so long, and I apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, today we're going to go over a book which was actually my first communist book that I have read completely all the way through, before, I did the whole Mao stuff and all that. And it was a pretty good book. I didn't know what it was talking about at the time because I was still an early Marxist, wasn't a Maoist yet. But yeah, rereading this and writing the script for this, I actually, agree with most of what he says, but we're going to go over that in the review. So without further ado, let us begin. In the first chapter, Lenin talks about the importance of the Russian Revolution on how a back-ass country, such as Russia for the time being, managed to lead a successful revolution rather than Marx would have predicted. For those of you who don't know, Marx thought a more advanced country would, but turns out he was wrong. Another interesting fact is that Lenin noted that the current revolution that was taking place will not last, and that in a Soviet socialist sense will become backwards. And from what I can take from this are two things. Either Lenin knew that the Soviet Union as it existed would not remain socialist and revisionism would probably be inevitable, in which case he was right due to people such as Khrushchev and Gorbachev coming up, or he is saying the model of revolution they had will not be the same across the world due to material conditions, in which case he is right again, as we saw with the Chinese Revolution where they had peasants revolt rather than the workers due to the workers being outnumbered by the peasants. They tried the worker revolution before, but sadly China failed the first time. It goes on to state that this revolution is proof that workers will indeed one day revolt against the ruling class, no matter how much they put it off. It will always be inevitable, which is something that I think we all should know. Not like that fucking moron Kyle Kalinske says, "Oh, that's just impossible." I'm sorry, I just watched a debate with him and Hassan Piker. I recommend you subscribe to Hassan Piker, he's a good dude. And just what Kyle said was fucking retarded. He says he's a social democrat, but he doesn't want to admit that he's still liberal. Fuck him. I'm sorry about that, I just really fucking hate Kyle and people like him. I just hate liberals, but moving on. Anyway, Vladimir goes on to note the mistakes of other so-called socialists in other countries such as Austria and Germany. One of them in Austria, two men by the name of Otto Burr, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and Friedrich Adler, and how they proved through their own pamphlets that they were against the working class, and they were just nothing more than opportunistic morons. He also brings up a German man by the name of Kautsky, whom Lenin calls a renegade. He brings up an article that Kautsky wrote called The Slavs and Revolution. And this Kautsky does take note of how the Russian proletariat became more revolutionary over time, and how they might even be an example for Western Europe. And he was right, because when Kautsky wrote this pamphlet, it was 15 years before the Bolshevik Revolution took place, and of course, as we know in history, the Bolsheviks won. Moving on to the second chapter, Lenin goes over why the Bolsheviks succeeded and how people like them stayed in power. And this part is something I want at least everyone on the left to listen to. Now, Lenin does state the obvious that there was no way in hell that the Bolsheviks should have held power for this long, let alone for 2 years. But he says the only way they managed to last this long was through discipline. They needed this in order to maintain a strong party and to win over the masses. As we know, a party that lacks discipline lacks the backbone, as we probably saw with the party in Austin, Texas, to carry itself through hard times, let alone a revolution. The next paragraph states why a dictatorship of the proletariat is needed. In order for the remaining capitalists to be squashed out, there needs to be a dictatorship of the workers to guide the fight against capital. Now, this also hints to the vanguard as well. Before we move on, I must state that Lenin did say there needed to be a new class to fight the bourgeois. Of course, again, I am assuming he means the vanguard. But as a Maoist, I must point out that this new class ended up being the new ruling class of the Soviet Union, as Mao pointed out. Of course, I doubt this was Lenin's intention, but this was a mistake we must take note of. And plus, first country to do socialism, there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And to be exact, I'm not saying the vanguard isn't bad, it is actually needed, but without a mass line, there is risk of it becoming the new ruling class, and revisionism will happen. This was a major mistake that the Soviet Union made. Next, Lenin goes over how to discipline the party and how workers, maintain their power, and he gives 3 points. Each point, of course, is class consciousness must be reinforced, self-sacrifice and devotion for the people. Point 2 is keeping in touch with the masses. Without keeping in touch with the masses, things won't go as planned. And point 3 is correct political leadership. This is very important. And if any of these needs are not met, the party is about as strong as diarrhea coming from a dog's asshole. Heimer also points out that the reason the Bolsheviks maintained power from 1917 to 1920 was also through strong centralization and what he calls, a paraphrase quote right here, a number of historical peculiarities of Russia, end quote. On the next paragraph, Lenin also says the other reasons they maintained power was through the inspiration of Marx. Now, apparently Russians have been gaining revolutionary thought from, mainly the 1840s to the 1890s under the reactionary czars, since some of them were sadly forced to immigrate from their own home country, so they would learn new ideas in other places in Europe or other countries. And since the only correct idea was, scientific socialism, some people began to learn about Karl Marx's and Friedrich Engels' ideas. The last paragraph of chapter 2, Lenin states that no other country had experienced revolution like this, both legal and illegal. 15 years of working and trying to succeed for a new and better life. Third chapter talks about the history of the principle of Bolshevism, and the chapter begins off that from the years of 1903 to 1905, 3 classes began to adapt a new revolutionary mindset, or basically wanting something different. These 3 classes Lenin listed were the liberal bourgeois, the petite bourgeois, who were mainly social democrats, which, a reminder, they're still liberal, and the proletariat. Now, Lenin explains that through the years of alternating through parliamentarianism and boycotting parliamentarianism using both legal and illegal methods of educating the masses, helped secure the success of the 1917 revolution. Now, it must be noted that parliamentary methods should not be used today. Why is that, you might ask? Well, for one, it's opportunistic. I hate to sound as if I am a leftcom, but participating in bourgeois democracy will not help us. If at all, it will stifle us, due to the fact that we cannot get away with violent actions against the system that voted us in. We will be restricted by the system. Yes, we can get our ideas out, which, is good, but to enact upon them will be met with a force that will crush us. We cannot change the system from the inside out. If at all, it will most likely change us. So again, that's how come people like me, Black Red Guard, and some of my Maoists, we're not for this whole electoral bullshit. If you want to do the whole Kyle Kalinske liberal bullshit, or even try Jimmy Dore's idea, which I know will fail as well, because, this country's, I remember learning something in government, basically to the point where any third party is actually going to get screwed over based on how our political laws are written. But, you cannot do that through, this type of electoral bullshit, election. It's impossible. And this is where I think, mainly Marxist-Leninists and Maoists tend to differ. And, of course, you have the PSL, but fuck the PSL. They do the same thing and they're not going to succeed. So, don't do it. It's just not correct thinking. It's not correct action. You want real action? Then study more dialectical materialism. You want real action? Try to create a people's war. Understand the masses and that shit. Fucking elections? Nah, man. That's why I fucking hate Kyle Kalinske and Sam Cedar's retarded asses. I'm sorry, I'm still just angry from yesterday. I just saw some people saying, they're making fun of Jimmy Dore, which, there's shit to critique and make fun of Jimmy Dore about. But when you say, Sam Cedar is smart, I think post-2003 Sam Cedar is intelligent with his ideas. Nah, man, you're fucking stupid. I'm sorry, but you're just fucking stupid. Get off that liberal bullshit and just read real theory. This is why, I know Kyle complains about us not voting, but then again, he's a cracker. So of course, through the eyes of a minority such as myself and some other minorities, more radical, political thinking people, which we know is not going to work for people like him, the settlers, that'll be harder. So, I'm sorry, but one last time, fuck Kyle Kalinske and fuck Sam Seder. I know that's random, but I fucking hate them both. Get back to the book, shall we? Oh boy. Okay, so Lenin goes on to say that even in their defeat during the years of 1907 to 1910 was actually beneficial for the Bolsheviks. He argues that it was a lesson they needed to learn on how to correctly carry out revolution. Let me repeat that. They needed to learn this lesson to know how to correctly carry out revolution. He states that it reminded them of learning about historical dialectics and how to wage a real political struggle. We need to teach people this. This is something important. I don't care if you think it's impossible. I mean, I think people in Russia thought it would be impossible for them to do a revolution like this. It turns out it happened. I mean, I think this world kind of has endless possibilities. Almost anything can happen. So again, get off that liberal bullshit and actually start thinking more radically and understanding historical and dialectical materialism. Not to mention, they actually learned how to attack and to have a tactical retreat. So I also gave them lessons on, warfare. Anyway, moving on, Lenin says that they had to expel members that refused to understand why retreating was important and how to work legally with the reactionary parliament and other organizations. A couple paragraphs ahead, Lenin brings up the February Revolution, which was the social democratic revolution that sought to create a parliamentary system, and how one of the members who were revolutionary opposed the parliament, which was led by reactionaries that played a role in the revolution. Democracy, by the way, it's kind of what these kids that don't know what socialism is, that's what they want. They don't want socialism, they just really want social democracy. They just want capitalism with a happier face, which is impossible. There's no ethical assumption under capitalism. And social democracy, no. It's still capitalism. There's still going to be massive exploitation, especially in the other third world countries. It's not the issue that we need. If you are a social democrat, please don't be. It's not pragmatic at all. If you want real change, you want to stop exploitation across the world, just be communist. Don't waste your time with social democracy and all these nice sounding things. Fuck Cortez, fuck Bernie Sanders, and fuck any other social democrat. Again, back to the book, he goes on to say the Mensheviks began to imbibe on opportunistic methods and how they were basically no longer of use and should be gotten rid of. He states that what they now read about Burr, Kautsky, and so on are what the Mensheviks were and how the other socialist parties in the Second International that abandoned their beliefs in favor of petty bourgeois ideas. Sounds familiar? Lenin says the revolutionaries of Russia already witnessed this before with the Mensheviks and will not repeat that mistake again. So the importance of Soviet power is key to a successful revolution. Lenin ends the paragraph by saying that all countries will inevitably have to go through the same ordeal Russia had gone through. I would argue that isn't completely true because, again, the Chinese Revolution was unique, one compared to the Soviet one. But, Lenin ends off the chapter by saying that bourgeois republic with a constitution is better than a bourgeois republic without one. However, a Soviet republic is better than a bourgeois democratic parliamentary republic, and that without the careful and prolonged preparations, they wouldn't have achieved victory during the October Revolution. The next chapter Lenin discusses the enemies within the working class and could their movement be still? In other words, could the movement be strong? Okay, so in the first paragraph he goes over the opportunism and chauvinism within the party from 1914, which as we all know was the First World War. He even says that this type of mindset still exists and is still an enemy to the international scale, some of which will still claim that they are still for the revolution but are just and only to their benefit and will switch as soon as something comes that will go against their original principles just for personal gain. The two enemies he mainly goes over is the petty bourgeois, which they can be useful but due to their status can be split, meaning that there's a 50-50 chance of them being revolutionary in the proletariat sense and reactionary revolution, or it could be a reactionary revolutionary. An example of this is like someone such as myself. I consider myself petite bourgeois. I'm a middle class black man. I chose the revolutionary scale. You have people such as, I fucking hate going back to this, Kyle Klinsky, that are more reactionary in the social democrat stance. The other being the anarchists. However, their main enemies were the petite bourgeois with their social democratic tendencies. Lenin says they struggled with three main points. Point number one is their party had rejected Marxism, ignoring the need of class action. We can see this today with many social democratic candidates in America. Let's be honest. Two, they called themselves quote-unquote left since they are against individual terrorism because Marxists themselves also rejected it. What they fail to realize is that we as Marxists are against terrorism in the sense of expediency. Lenin gives an example of the French Revolution where the left, or real leftists, not the pussy social democrats, actually support the so-called Great Terror. We understand mistakes were made, but in a revolution you have to flush out the reactionary forces, or pretty much any forces against the new revolution, whether it be re-education, expelling them, or sadly, if push comes to shove, they might have to die. But, we try to avoid that. We don't want people to die. We give you a chance. Like, you can change, but please don't make us choose death. Because loss of human life is not pretty. And three, they were hypocrites. Oh boy. They had no issues calling out the bullshit of the German Social Democratic Party, but they themselves participate in the same opportunistic bullshit. Lenin gives examples when they question the dictatorship of the proletariat in the Argarian question. I did not pronounce that right. One of the things I will critique Lenin on is in the next couple of paragraphs. For one, he says that it was necessary for them to be in parliament. Whilst that may have worked for the time, today, as I mentioned before, it is of no use, as I explained earlier. He does argue that it is useful just to get your ideas out there and see how they would be treated unfairly when the Tsar started, his adversary against the new democratic system. The Bolsheviks boycotted it, and it seemed to work as some people did back them. However, today this might not work because the ruling class learns how to control people. They can learn from the mistakes of their own comrades. Further into the chapter, he goes over on how the quote-unquote left communists signed the Brest-Litovsk deal. I cannot pronounce that for the life of me. Which was nothing more than a compromise between the workers and the imperialists. Some communists admitted to making this mistake, such as Bukharin, and we can see here that there will be people that are not truly for the cause and will sell out at the drop of a hat. He states that his main point is this: abandon compromise from the enemy. If you take the compromise from the enemy, you are abandoning your principles and you really have nothing to stand for. Let's move on to chapter 5. Lenin goes over the left communists in Germany. Right off the bat, Lenin states they do not call themselves left, but apparently go by opposition on principle. He states that they suffer from an infantile disorder, due to them rejecting the notion of participating in parliament and dictatorship of the proletariat. He goes on by saying that misunderstanding the dictatorship over class, they tried to make a new term, or just plain call the whole dictator connotation reactionary. Because of the word dictator, which does not always have a negative connotation, they just try to make it seem, evil. They want full communism, but without the transition, from, capitalism, socialism, and then communism. They just want full-blown communism, which is impossible and not scientifically accurate. He then goes over how in Germany and Western Euro countries in general like to function legality rather than illegally. Which kind of makes me think of the current issues in Europe today, such as Corbyn. I like Jeremy Corbyn. Him I do like. But, being radical yet working within the UK Parliament, I'm afraid he won't get far, sadly. I mean, the only European country in the West that has major political unrest right now, as if they're actually doing something, is France. As far as I know. And then you have issues in Southern Europe, such as the countries in Greece. But when's the last time there was real illegal struggle against the ruling class? Europe, by the way, not like in India or Philippines. I know there had to be some, but we need to move on with the review. He also says that these people misuse the term masses. He basically states that their term of leaders and masses are just simplistic. It says that Marx in England between 1852 to 1892 on how the masses in England, the labor aristocrats, began to be singled out from the masses. These people began to focus on maintaining their status rather than partaking in revolutionary thought. This advancement in class caused opportunism to rise and become isolated from other parts of the masses. In other words, the masses are not just one single group, but it's just multiple groups within society. So masses is just an umbrella term for each single group, because some of the masses are, the rich and reactionary, and some of them are the more revolutionary, and some of them are just, I don't know. The 6th chapter talks about the question whether or not revolutionaries work in reactionary trade unions. Of course, left communists are against working within trade unions, as pointed out by Lenin. Now, whilst I can agree working within parliament is stupid, trade unions, on the other hand, seem useful. Vlad even says the opposition by the lefts are nothing more than mere phrase-mongering. Lenin says that the Communist Party actually relies on trade unions, even though people within the unions were non-party members. The All-Russian Central Trade Union consisted of communists that carried out the actions. Now, he does say in practice that this was a difficult task, but with the help of propaganda and agitation they managed to pull through. Lenin also goes over that communicating through the masses using trade unions is not enough. As stated before, the masses aren't one thing. It's an umbrella term for multiple people within society. They must reach different people for their day. It was workers and peasants, and to extend communication to other parts of the masses. So that's one thing that I'm going to be talking about in a future video, on how you approach people. It kind of goes back to Oedipal. You don't approach black men with communism as you do with a white man in communism. You have to tackle from their angle, see how capitalism oppresses them and talk to them through their eyes. Understand what their race is going through. I know a lot of MLs are against Oedipal, but usually they misunderstood that Oedipal can be useful. It's just the way that liberals use it is fucking gross. And the way that the reactionary right uses it is actually horrifying. So it can be useful, it just has to be used correctly. You have to approach people in different ways, and not make them feel alienated, and tell them that this is what needs to happen in order to help your situation. One paragraph I am critical of says that in this general mechanism, the proletarian, viewed from above of the standpoint of a practical realization. God damn it. Now, I could be interpreting this wrong, and if I am, feel free to call me out on it. But from what I can take from this is that the rules should be top to bottom rather than building from bottom to top in order to connect to the people. I say this because I was watching a live video of two comrades talking about the mistakes of the USSR or something similar of those lines. And that was brought up. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am, please call me out and correct me on it. Next, he goes over on how working with materials that were bequeathed to us by capital is not a bad thing, and that it is a natural transition into socialism. I have talked to left cons before, and aside from it being painful and me wanting to kill myself, it's obvious that they book worship. Dear Lord, do these people book worship. They don't understand the transitioning phase. They can't handle the fact that Marx could have been wrong, or at least use socialism and communism interchangeably. Hell, even Lenin says socialism is a lower phase of communism, thus justifying the use of trade unions. Next, he debunks the fear of the reactionaries within the trade unions is childish, and within socialism it is the goal to weed out the reactionaries. Hence, events like the Red Terror and the Great Purge were needed. Now, were they perfect? Fuck no, they were not. Were they needed? Yes. I know our society likes to demonize this and call it suppression of free thought. Oh no. Oh no. Dave Rubin was right. Oh no. But when you're trying to create progress and set a new government, you cannot risk people ruining anything. So a purge is not bad. And it is good to weed these people out. I doubt the founding fathers allowed any England sympathizers to roam free and keep their place in government. I'm pretty much sure some of them were either humiliated or fucking killed. So the 7th chapter is on the question whether or not should we as communists participate in parliamentary elections. As I stated before, the answer is no, but I will not repeat myself as if I were a broken record. Lenin critiques the left for thinking parliamentarianism is obsolete, and his retort is, in a sense, it is and it isn't. It is in a capitalist sense, but as a whole, it can be useful. Listen, I'm not going to waste my time on this answer. We're already 30 minutes in, goddammit. And it's just no. Just don't participate in it. It's fucking liberalism. Moving on to Chapter 8. Now, in Chapter 8, Lenin goes over the question on compromise. Here again, he critiques the lefts in Germany and other countries that claim to be Marxist, but in practice they are not. He first quotes Engels, and then he goes on into the question of compromise. He says that a revolutionary can make compromises, but it has to be it can't be detrimental to the revolution as a whole. There is no compromising if the revolution is at stake. Now, there is a mark I made back in 11th grade. That's when I got the book. When I left off, but I noticed something that follows it, and it states that Lenin said that our theory as Marxists is not dogmatic. Why am I pointing this out to you, you might ask? Well, I see left communists as dogmatic people that book worship Marx and Engels, and if communism isn't exact as both men wrote it out to be, it is opportunists or just capitalists. As I said before, they can't either accept something Marx and Engels said was wrong or don't understand Marxism in general. That's the issue I find with these people. They are unironically, people say Hosists are dogmatic. Fucking talk to a left comp or ultra leftists. Those are some dogmatic motherfuckers. In Chapter 9, Lenin now goes to the left communists in England. Oh joy. He starts off saying that new communist parties that were popping up at the time were indeed a good thing. He brings up this article of the four parties coming together, but they seem to disagree on certain issues, and that is, of course, participating in parliamentary elections, as well as trade unions. So the main division or problem is as the same as the one in Germany. He goes over an article written by a Scottish woman named Sylvia Pankhurst, to which she references a letter she had received. This actually gave Lenin hope. The reason this gave him hope is that the young new communists were angry and full of passion. They can use their temper to rouse the masses into an anger they did not know they had. However, he does remind us that temper alone will not fully work. Again, aside from the fact that this is outdated, there's something that I found worthy of bringing up. It seems that a man by the name of Lloyd George, who was part of the Liberal Party in England, that no longer exists. They disbanded in 1988, if I'm correct. Lloyd George was no Marxist. He wasn't even a part of the Labour Party. But Lenin says, this is something we must learn. For one, liberals and conservatives are both liberals, and them supporting each other during this election because they just want to win from the Labour Party. And by the way, guess who was running against Lloyd George in the Conservative Party? A fat, gelatinous, racist fuck we all know as Winston Churchill. I fucking hate that cracker. But moving on, he basically saying what we all know. Liberals and conservatives are the same. They may not know it, they just have minute differences, but when it comes down to it, they support a liberal democracy and liberal ideas. Which is not really surprise. Not to mention, these liberals were abandoning the two-party system that apparently England once had for, to make a one-party system. At least against the Labour Party. This reminds me of two things. One, this is Jimmy Dore's kind of correct. Like, if there was a third party that did make a big enough threat, the Democrats and Republicans probably would merge together. He didn't say that, but it kind of implies that. But again, I don't think that's ever going to work, so I think his idea is bullshit. Two, it reminds me of a man by the name of Lumumba. He was president of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's why Che Guevara went there, because he got captured. That America is a one-party system. No matter how much liberals and conservatives have these little disagreements, as I stated before, they are still the same party. They are still ran by the same ruling class. No matter how you try to get in there, they will be run by the ruling class. There's no way of fixing it, democratically, sadly. I mean, we're not like Venezuela, and even Venezuela, that's not working out. They have to have revolution. That's what we need. Again, ignore what that pussy idiot Kyle Kalinske said, and actually grow some fucking balls and learn about revolution, motherfucker. If you are a revolutionary, let no one tell you that this democratic bullshit is the way to go or the way to change. It may piss them off, they may call you idealistic, they may call you dumb, but again, these are the same motherfuckers that vote for a ruling class member that will fuck them over and over again, and they will refuse to learn or choose a different path. So, just ignore them. Just fucking ignore them. They're useless. Useless idiots, as a guy I know calls people. Alright, on the next page, Lenin gave a rule for the revolution. It's not enough for the oppressed masses to understand how the old rule is bad. They must not allow the exploiters and leaders to live and rule the old way. There cannot be revolution during good times, even in the times of exploitation. The people will think things are fine despite the exploitation. The people must have class consciousness. Second, the government has to have a big fuck up before people get sick and tired of the same answer, which is somewhat working across the world now. Sometimes it may go reactionary, but it's working. You just need to get out there and educate them and save them from the right. Lenin does state a chance for revolution in Britain was ripening, but as we can tell today, it got nowhere, if at all. There was a threat of fascism with Oswald Mosley, but thankfully that didn't take off either. Now, whether that be the fault of the quote-unquote lefts or not, I can't tell. I know very little to none of British leftist history. Now, the last chapter is called Some Conclusion. So, Lenin concludes on the 1905 bourgeois revolution, which helped the historical conditions of the February one and later October revolution. He states that the Soviets have pretty much set an example on how to do a proper revolution for at least the time. But he does point out that communists then, and even somewhat now, but not as much as back then, should watch out for the left comms. We also struggle against social chauvinists, which, dear God, do we, and reactionary communists within our struggle, and we must critique them. Lenin is right when he says that as communists, we should be against opportunists in these reactionary lines of thought. They are a threat to our revolution. For some parts of the chapter, he just sums up what he goes over, from revolution and left comms to England's new party, and the race between the liberal Lloyd George and that fat gelatinous fuck known as Churchill. And for the remainder of the chapter, he goes over the issues of that current time, which was 1920, such as how most countries use the Bolshevik Revolution to create this Red Scare. He even goes over how people such as Kautsky, who turned left comm, could be a lesson to learn as to watch out for this form of revisionism. He ends the book by talking about world revolution and how communism must recover from an infantile disorder known today as left communism. Alright, so as for my thoughts, well, before I give my final thoughts, I would like to reinstate that this was my first communist book I read all the way through. Not the first communist book I bought. Was a book by Engels called Scientific Socialism, a Utopic, and I forgot the rest of the title. And I never really finished that because at the time I didn't know what was going on. The socialism I wanted, or the one I discovered back in 9th grade, was basically social democracy. But ever since I grew up and actually learned what real socialism is and what is correct and what is wrong, I now know that, I didn't know what the fuck I was thinking as a kid. So yeah, but all in all, this book is great. Now, if you're getting into communism, I would not recommend this book to be your first read like I did. Save it for later. When you have some basic knowledge of what communism is and the different forms before reading this, then I think you should. Now, I wish I knew that first, but I didn't. Anyway, I will say that I agree with Lenin, excluding on some of the things such as parliamentary method. That's so data won't work anymore. Illegal revolution might be the only way. Don't be like the PSL or that dumbass secular talk. Electoral shit doesn't work in our favor, and please, just don't waste your time like I did, just ranting about that little bitch. So, yeah. Need collective action based on scientific thought, and the only way for that is Maoism. Now, if you feel different, tell me why. I might think you're objectively wrong, especially if you're not communist, but I will listen to you anyway. I mean, for God's sakes, I probably will always read whatever the fuck you guys say. Here's what I have planned for my next videos, by the way. Two of them were going to be speeches I did in my speech class. The first one is Saddam Hussein's rise and fall, and the second will be the speech of which was the global warming cause and possible solution. For the third video, it's going to be a redo video on my thoughts on fascism. I'm going to redo that. I'm not very pleased with it. I'm not pleased with a lot of my old videos in general, and I know I'm still early, but dear God, I really need to work on my audio. This microphone is shit. I need to work on my speaking, I know, but I'm trying, man. And the fourth video will be my thoughts on third worldism. And that will be a shit show, but I hope you guys at least hear me out, because I think third worldism is class reductionist bullshit. Like that fat fuck Jason Underwood. I hate him too. But yeah, anyway, and also, the fifth, we're going to go back to an author in my next book review on the genealogy of morals by Friedrich Nietzsche. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this book review. Sorry it took so long, but hey, it happens. If you have any comments, questions, or critiques, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it. Dislike it if you disliked it. Make sure you comment, subscribe. I already said comment. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification to know when my next video is out. I'd like to wish every one of you a happy holidays or a happy Christmas. And if you hate both sayings, then to quote the great angry video game nerd, then happy shut the fuck up. This is Bacor98, signing off.